A large amount of investors fail and they blame the market, but the truth is they make these 5 mistakes when investing in property. Hi all, my name is Gianni Musumeci. I'm from Leverage Property Advisors and I'm not your average buyer's agent. I've purchased dozens of property in my own name and helped countless clients make their first or next step onto the property ladder. I've spent more than 20 years in the finance industry, and at least half of that time I've spent in the financial planning industry. I've got qualifications in financial planning, financial services, mortgage broking, and more obviously, real estate. And in this video, I'm gonna go through the 5 biggest mistakes that people make when investing in property. Now, make sure you watch to the end because I'm gonna be giving away free access to my webinar on the 7 steps that you must take before even thinking about purchasing an investment property. So here are the 5 biggest mistakes a property investor can make and how you can avoid them. The first one is not having a clear strategy. I see people countless amount of times investing in property just because they think it might be the cool thing to do or they think it might be a good deal. But the reality is it's not in line with a clear strategy. And ultimately we set a clear strategy because there is a goal. There is a plan in place to reach that goal, and the strategy is our plan. And so that being said, when people willy-nilly purchase property without considering their strategy, more often than not, they do themselves a disservice and they purchase the property to their detriment. So if I had one thing to say, make sure you have a clear investment strategy before you move on and purchase an investment property. The second biggest mistake that people make is buying based on emotion. I see a lot of people, especially in the Facebook forums, that consider purchasing a property because of an emotional reason. They want to be close to family, they want to have their kids go to a specific school, they want a holiday there, they want to retire there. Whatever the reason is, more often than not, it's an emotional reason. And if you're buying your principal place of residence, then so be it. If you can afford to do so and it's for an emotional reason, so be it. But don't mix the 2 reasons. Don't mix the 2 goals. Don't purchase a property for 2 reasons. Don't purchase it to holiday and then be upset when it goes down in value, or don't purchase it in a school catchment area near your family and then be upset when it doesn't work out, because you can't mix emotions and investing. Again, you have to align yourself to a clear strategy and goal, and emotions and strategies don't mix. The third biggest mistake I see is people ignoring cash flow and holding costs. I've seen a few posts lately considering inflation levels and interest rate levels over this prolonged period of time. And one of the biggest reasons that I see people selling is because they're doing it tough financially. And more often than not, it's because they haven't done a proper cash flow assessment of the property and assessed whether they can actually afford to hold and maintain that property over the long term. Before getting into property, before understanding if this investment property is right for you, you firstly need to do a cash flow assessment to understand, can I, out of my own cash flow, afford to fund this property until it becomes cash flow neutral? And you need to have a plan in place to get to cash flow neutral as well, if that is part of your investment strategy. Some people will negative gear forever, and I don't essentially agree with that from a financial planning perspective, because then it's like a business that's just hemorrhaging money. And no business that continues to hemorrhage money for the long term is a viable business. So that being said, there should always be a goal to get that investment property to cash flow neutral. And then that, once that property is cash flow neutral, is your signal to say, okay, let's go for number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. The fourth biggest mistake that I see people making is buying in the wrong location. A lot of the times people buy in the wrong location is because they listen to barbecue chatter, because they listen to the news hype, because their friends bought in a certain area and they've done well. And yes, once upon a time, things in that area might have gone up. Property in that area may have gone down and you might think, oh, now's a good time to buy the dip. That is not the case. We don't buy based on past performance. The reason why we look at past performance is to benchmark our property amongst the market. So that's the only reason why we look at past performance. We don't look to assess past performance to decide whether we're going to buy in that area or not. We look at past performance as a benchmark, number 1. Number 2, we don't listen to hype or barbecue chatter. News hype, more often than not, once it hits the news, it's already too late. So you really need to do your own assessment and look at leading indicators, not buy based on past performance, buy based on news hype, or buy based on barbecue chatter. And the final, number 5 biggest mistake that people make when they purchase an investment property is not having an exit plan in place. Getting out of an investment is the hardest thing to do. Getting into an investment is one of the easiest things that you can do. And so that being said, you need to consider your exit plan before you buy a property. When you exit from an investment, there are so many costs involved. At a high level, there's only three ways that you can exit from a property. Either you can draw equity out of the property, and ultimately this is going to cost you in funding costs. You can sell a property. There are a lot of exit costs involved in selling a property: marketing, sales, CGT, solicitors, mortgage discharge costs, all of those exit fees. And then the last one is when you make the property part of your estate. So when you eventually pass away, and we're all going to die, when we eventually pass away, making that property part of your estate and any estate costs associated with passing that property as part of your estate onto whoever you deem fit, that is ultimately going to cost you money as well. So if you don't think about these costs before you get out of a property, then you really are shooting yourself in the foot. And ultimately, you could be either not making as much as you thought or making a loss when selling an investment property. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I find people make when exiting from an investment property, is not considering their exit plan. So there you have it. Just to recap, the 5 biggest mistakes that I see property investors make: not having a clear strategy in place, buying based on emotion, not doing a cash flow assessment on holding costs, buying in the wrong location or based on news and barbecue chatter hype, and then finally, not having an exit plan in place. So make sure at all costs, when you're looking at buying an investment property, you remove these and avoid these mistakes altogether. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate you watching this video right through to the end. As promised, I'm going to give you free access to my 7 steps that you need to take before purchasing an investment property webinar video. I go into detail about the 7 steps that you must take before purchasing an investment property. That is available for you in the description of this video. So make sure you click on the description, go to the link, and then watch the entire video, because I want to make sure that you set yourself up for success. And if you could do me another big favor, hit the like and subscribe video. I make all these videos for free, ultimately to benefit property investors across Australia. And that being said, when you hit subscribe, it allows me to do more of these videos. So thank you in advance and happy investing.